battle rages in WC and NWC, that's National Working Committee, over legal advisor. Let's move on to the Platform Times. Forgery scandal rocks PDP ahead of convention. Anyanwu accuses party officials, INEC collaborators of criminal act. Court halt preparations, orders parties to maintain status quo. Blueprint newspaper. November PDP convention in sworn affidavit. Anyanwu says, my signature forged in document to INEC. Interesting developments coming up from the issue with PDP. Now let's move on to the leadership newspaper. Allocate 1% of GDP to education, infrastructure, IMF tells Nigeria. And next, after the leadership newspaper, talking about IMF is the Daily Times. IMF urges Nigeria to reallocate 1% of GDP to growth sectors. IMF urges Nigeria to reallocate 1% of GDP to growth sectors. Next is Daily Independent. We are considering proposals for viable national carrier. That's according to the federal government. Guillermo says new airline won't be government funded. Sage Ozekome back idea, urge discipline, transparency. This Nigeria, NEL fund, varsities exploit loan scheme, hike school fees. Experts warn of policy sabotage, urge the government to tie eligibility to free transparency. Last but not least, Atalanta and Lazio 0-0. Lukman plays for 82 minutes, fires blank. This is a devilish headline. All right, guys, let's get down to brass tacks. I'll be doing this with Etoma, Ria, and of course, Olamide. Now, looking at the Nation newspaper, as well as the Platform Times and then the blueprints, looking at the PDP problem. They are having their convention, I think, November the 15th. Yeah. And I was saying that letter to INEC, the signature on it, was forged. It doesn't belong to him. And then you'll be asking, who forged whose signature? To what end?
It's just funny that Anyawu's signature was forged. That's if it actually was forged. Right now, it's an allegation. Who would have signed that letter in the first place? It was him, and he's a member of the NWC, and the convention is an NWC event, so to say. So ordinarily, he would have signed the letter. Was there a problem that he refused to sign, and they gave somebody who knows how to sign his signature the signature to go ahead? All in all is that there is something brewing inside PDP. That implosion that was prophesied about is what we are seeing here. That I don't think PDP will be able to survive 2027.
Well, I do not know what your crystal ball actually told you.
I'm telling you, because these things are coming from everywhere.
In politics, the kind of U-turn that it can make can be way more than you. It can be V-turn, so much so that you see things turning around. But this is a time when we see large defections from the PDP, from the, ADC, from the Labour Party, etc., pouring themselves into the ruling party, the APC. Is it not time for PDP and all of the opposition to put their acts together, so much so that they present themselves with a united front?
Ibrahim, if only they were listening to us every morning, I'm sure they will have put their acts together, because we've been saying it every morning. Now, I feel like something is cooking in the PDP, and when that thing is finally ready, it's going to be very bad for them. My fear is,
can you deliberately cook something bad that you want to feed
they don't even know, but something is cooking. I love that cooking, and when that thing finally, it's true, when that thing finally is ready for them to eat, they themselves will be surprised at the harm that they have caused for themselves, because it's always one thing or the other. They keep blaming different people. Those people are not in the party again, but you see that they can't fix their home. I want PDP to understand that if people are seeing what is happening in your home, then how can you even try to fix Nigeria if you cannot even fix a small gathering like your party? Okay, now Aya was saying that his signature was forged. It's not something for us to joke with. Now I'm wondering, so all the things that have been sent from PDP to INEC, does that mean that there's forgery in some of them? How do I now trust that, you know, everything that has been sent to INEC is true? So I feel like they just say statements and they do not even understand how in-depth these statements mean. Now, they have lost a lot of public trust. People, when you go outside and speak to people, people don't even trust that party again. You can see that everybody wants to play power, and it's killing the party. And they themselves, because politicians are very optimistic, they do not even see that they themselves they are falling. We need a viable opposition in Nigeria. We don't know what's happening with ADC. We see PDP shaking. Their house is not fixed. Your house cannot be scattered and you want to make Nigeria whole. It's not possible. And Nigerians are saying. You know, there is a vested interest. Politicians are incurable optimists. They just want to achieve. Even when they see themselves falling, they say they are not falling.
So one thing is, how do you think this party can resolve the problem ahead of November the 15th, convention? Because this is the time they are supposed to come together, gel themselves together and say we have to defeat the incumbent party. Indeed, but it doesn't appear so.
This coming convention in Ibadan was supposed to be about renewal for the party and resurgence. What's going to happen now is that it's going to turn into a place where all of them battle the internal leadership legitimacy. And that's not what the convention is about. But I will say this, PDP has never had its opposition, its biggest opposition has always been itself. And that is such a shame for a party that started from within. Yes, that started on such lofty ideals. I mean, for a secretary to be saying my signature was forged, so an institution such as INEC, it signals a bigger problem. It's not just a paperwork issue, I didn't sign. It shows a lack of credibility. And they're consistently going to undermine themselves in the public eye, like you rightly said, Ria. So
how would people, the thing is that Olamide, how would people now trust them? Because word on the streets, because I love to speak to people on the streets, you know, because I want to get their opinion. And everybody sees PDP as, oh, those ones, they don't even know what they're doing. And it hurts me because we want, Nigeria is not a one-party state. PDP, we want viable opposition.
PDP, how many times did I call you?
And to think that, Olamide, to think that PDP used to be a very strong party in Nigeria, where did they go wrong? How did they now turn like this?
You'll be surprised that a whole lot of people still, you know, have their trust in PDP.
Little people,
well, we can't
Ibrahim,
say,
I tell
we can't say statistically, you know, a whole lot of people still believe in the party. That's why we say politicians are incurable optimists. They believe that something miraculously can still happen. Now let's move on to the leadership newspaper as well as the Daily Times. You know, allocate 1% of GDP to education, infrastructure. IMF tells Nigeria. If you look at the Daily Times, same thing. IMF urges Nigeria to reallocate 1% of GDP to growth sectors, and these actually include the fact that you add some money for the education, infrastructure, so much so that they are recommending to Nigeria to prioritize growth, strengthen public finance management, strengthen revenue collections, support vulnerable populations. And when you do this, then you can easily say, yeah, our GDP has really risen to that level that we want it to be.
Yes, and most of the things that IMF pointed out, the federal government is already doing, you know. And but what really caught me when I read that story is that for the past 15 to 20 years, it was in 2004 that we had the highest budgetary allocation for education. And that was a little bit above 8%, which is far below the UNESCO recommendation of 20%. You know, so saying at least give 1% of your GDP to these sectors, it's a very sound advice. I agree with that, quite all right. But I will say it again, some of the measures they mentioned there, the present administration is already doing them apart from the budgetary allocation for education, which to me is the most important in all of them. Right now, we're a little bit above 7% budgetary allocation for the year on education. My question is, why should education be the one that has issues, that is given pittance? Education is something that we should, education and health is something that we should really deliberately as a country invest in. That's my opinion.
And I think I was watching a doctor yesterday on our channel who was talking about health and, you know, showing us different infrastructure development for health sectors, you know, hospitals in different states. And he's saying that this federal government, you know, over the years, compared to previous governments, had made the largest contribution, largest budgetary allocation to health sector.
Yeah, and we're looking at this 1%. That's roughly, when I talk about money, it's heavy for me to pronounce. That's roughly 2 trillion or more, 2 trillion naira or more.
But you like money.
I love money, but there's a part of money that I am. But it's beautiful to see that we need to now diversify. We've been saying this thing. It needs to go to other places as well. Every country that you invest in your education, you are investing in the future.
That's right.
Because once people learn right, at the end of the day, they bring it back, to the country. So I like what IMF is saying, but the government is already doing something like that. But I feel like more has to be done. Infrastructure, we see what's happening in Abuja, but we want it to cut across, to other places. We want to see Lagos, we want to see Calabar. We don't just want to hear, only one place has amazing roads. It needs to be, because Nigeria is a whole. It's not just, one place. And agriculture as well. I think sometimes we forget agriculture, storage. So many things have to be put in place. And I feel like when we now remove our mind from just oil, and we now go, there's fintech, there's tech. Technology is taking over. There's so many things that, we can put. We need to spend wiser, actually, because when we spend wiser, it creates more jobs for Nigerians. And then we'll now reduce the jackpot. People will now believe that, okay, I can stay home, I'll get jobs. So I feel like when these things are put into place, especially jackpot will reduce it.
As you come in, I actually love RIA submission, but that goes beyond the federal government. Now we look at the subnationals. Exactly what are they doing to complement what the federal government is doing? So when we say budgetary allocations for education, for health, for agriculture, for digital economy, etc., what are the subnationals doing? We aren't seeing them as much as we should.
Absolutely. That's because they created a system that is both upstream and downstream that you can't really hold to account. But I will say this, Ria, like you rightly said, Nigeria's problem is not more money. It's using our money more wisely, using smarter money. This is not the first time that international institutions are advising us to not underinvest in human capital, like education. When you underinvest in human capital, there are long-term consequences, even though there's short-term comfort. So I really want to see us really take that advice, because these people know what they are doing. This is just this is not the first time we've been warned. Like I said, we have to focus on building productivity as opposed to feeding bureaucracy. That is my take on this.
Yeah, that's right. And then it's quite interesting, I don't know how to put it, because IMF and the rest, they are the one that will advise you have to allocate this amount. And then when they borrow your money, they make it difficult for you to pay back.
My own is that let the right things just be done with money.
Now let's move on to the Daily Independent. And I think this Nigeria also, Daily Independent actually, saying we are considering proposals for viable national carrier. Federal governments saying that. Kiyamo says new airline won't be government funded. Sage Ozekome back idea, urge discipline, transparency. Remember in 2023 when we had this national carrier which was debunked or refuted, that come on, this doesn't belong to us. But this time around, government say we are looking in that direction, which is good for the economy, good for tourism, etc. But it's not going to be government funded. So they are opening up for investors to come in,
which is a very smart move.
Yeah.
It is a very, very smart move because aviation is truly private initiative. It's better as a private initiative. Anyhow you look at it. Let's look at our last carrier that is now defunct. Why is it defunct today? It's because of a whole lot of interferences here and there. Government officials want to travel, they just hop into it and they go. And the carrier was losing money every day. Now, if we have a private concern or a consortium of private investors owning the national carrier, it's going to be better run. It's going to be better run, and we'll see a situation where the fleet keeps increasing from time to time. And I believe with a very efficient national carrier, it will help the image of Nigeria. Airplanes carry a lot of information, especially international flights, magazines, and the rest that you have there.
I love this topic actually.
Some of other countries that have their national carrier, some of them not owned by them, but then it's national carrier. You talk about Morocco, you talk about Egypt, you talk about so many African countries are doing it. Nigeria, Ghana, I do not think they have their own national carrier.
No, not yet. So Ghana, everybody uses African World in Ghana. We see it like the national carrier, but it's actually not. And I know that Nigerian Airways, I always ask, where is Nigerian Airways? Although I wasn't in Nigeria when, was I born? I don't know if I was born then, because that was in 1958. I don't know if I wasn't born then.
You are doubting whether
I wasn't born then, of course. But then I wonder, why did Nigerian Airways go down the drain like how it went through? It's so sad to see that Nigeria doesn't have, an an airline to say this is Nigerian Airways. Let's talk about Tanzania, which is something that they just, you know, got an airline that goes straight to Tanzania. Like, when you do things like that, it makes you prestigious as a country. And it's not as if we cannot afford it in Nigeria. It's just that some loopholes, some people that do not want money to go into the, you know, some people that want to hold money to themselves are the ones making this not happen.
That's right.
I feel like it's high time we look into this. Let us have, most of the times, if you ask me, I'll say Airpeace is our national, this, at the end of the day, but, you know, till we have our own, you know, a lot of people like trust Airpeace.
Right.
But I feel like it's high time. Let us have our airways. Either call it Nigerian Air, Nigerian Airways, if you want to call it that again. It just gives us some sort of prestige. And when we finally have it, you know, like you were saying, it's not your father's property. If you are flying it, you have to pay. I feel like our government officials as well, it starts with them. They need to do the right thing. Not because we have Nigerian Airways, you feel like it's your father's property. Anytime you want to fly, you fly with it. Because when we do that, this is what makes it go down the drill.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think when we look at the concept of a national carrier, it's more than just an airplane. It's a flying flag. It communicates our identity. It communicates our culture. In fact, it can even directly influence our GDP goals because it's going to invest in places like, in sectors like tourism and logistics. When our people are stranded in other countries, they have emergency airlifts that can go and get them. It is a symbol of national pride. I think that this is wonderful, and I think that it's great that it's a public and private partnership. I think that we should look into it. When you look at Ethiopian Airlines and you think about the women of prestige, you think Ethiopia and you create a mental connection to that country and that identity. When you think British Airways, the way that they serve their food, you think Britain, the land of whatever it is. And so we have to have a Nigerian national carrier.
And that's why I always say that Airpeace is trying with this. You get to eat jollof. You get to eat jollof on the plane.
There are so many other airlines in Nigeria that are doing well, but we need that pride in a national carrier.
Yes, we do.
Paradise in the sky.
We need it, definitely.
And I want to see the girls wearing green, white, the white shoe.
All right then, let's move on, guys.
And different cultures invited as well.
Let's move on, guys. This Nigeria, NEL Fund, varsities exploit loan scheme, hike school fees. Experts warn of policy sabotage, urge the government to tie eligibility to free transparency. Government is doing everything to ensure that our students, go to school. We just talked about IMF urging Nigeria to allocate 1% of the budget to education, infrastructure, etc. But schools like University of Elisha, Osun State, another one in Ekiti State University, University of Medical Sciences, Ondo State, Edo State, etc. They are, Edo State, for instance, they raise the same programs fee, talk about nursing, medicine, from 1 million to 3.250 million naira. And some other countries some other states like that, including your own state that you were proud of. These are your institutions sabotaging the government's efforts. In NEL Fund.
And it is so sad. It is so sad that finally we have a government that says, let's give you students loans so that more of you can go to school, can pay your tuition in tertiary institution. And the same tertiary institution are sabotaging government effort in that direction. What are we looking at? Is it the profit that we will make today, or we are looking at posterity? We are looking at the education of our children, the long-term benefits of these children having good education. And do remember that these loans that these children take to pay their tuition and the rest, they will pay back. That means it's going to be like a revolving fund. So more Nigerian children are going to benefit from the schools.
Because of our time, Ria, talking about paying back, it means that medical students at Edo State University studying from 100 to 600 level would graduate with a debt burden of over 51 million naira.
Where do you want them to see this? Where do you want them to see this money
because of the schools' antics, the schools.
See, Ibrahim, in this state, I'm going to speak broken. I'm going to say, now man, they do man at the end of the day. Because the government, we cannot lie, the government is trying their best. But you can see that some schools are just trying to make it more difficult for the students. Now, it hurts me that these people, do they not know the value of education? If the students don't get education, how do we expect the future of Nigeria to be bright? I wonder why, we have certain individuals that cannot just do the right thing. What is the reason? You have to be very inhuman, because if I finish school, how long is it going to take me to get work? Even if I get work, how can I pay these bills? How just for me to pay these bills back? So if children are trying to calculate it, some of them will be like, what is it? I don't even need to go to school. And that's why we have a lot of people that will tell you, I'll be an entrepreneur, I'll go into content creation. I'm not saying content creation is bad, but whatever you're doing in life, you still need education.
You need education.
The government is considering, suspending this disbursement government to default in schools, and this is still going to affect the students either way.
Absolutely. There are major lifelong consequences for this. You have children and people that are going to start their lives being disadvantaged financially because they're already in debt before they can even get into the housing or the job market. But I will say this, and I will never justify any sort of exploitation of a government scheme in any way, shape or form. But this is an effect of poor welfare of the teachers. They are hungry. Of the institutions, they are hungry.
Even if you are hungry.
So I'm not justifying it here, but I'm saying there are consequences for every action.
Even if you are hungry, what is wrong is wrong.
I agree with you, but I'm just saying this is an happening.
What have the schools been doing before Nel Fund? Now people are jackpine out of the country, wanting to stay back.
You want them to stay, but yet you are making it very difficult for them. And you tell me you're hungry, you forever be hungry.
Before you go to the next paper, the most annoying thing about this increment is that it's not like 20% increment. It's 300% increment.
It's way some
people,
300%.
If you graduate from school, how long does it take you to get a job? You now finally get a job, you pay rent, you use transportation. How will you pay that money?
And you also marry and give birth. All right, then, sports in life. Atlanta, nil, Lazio, nil. Lookman plays for 82 minutes. Fires blank. Why do you have to put that fires blank there? At least he tried, you know, he did all his best, but at the end of the day, none of the club actually won the the match. But one thing is, we have giants in the pitch. We have Osimhen, we have Lookman doing all of this. So we hope that they're able to recoup whatever loss they made in this very last match. But I understand that we have to race on because of our next segment. You stay with us here on TVC Breakfast. We'll take a closer look at Governor Charles Soludo's 3-year scorecard. Has he delivered on his promises or fallen short of expectations? Just stay with us. We'll be right back for this.